Halacha Daf Yomi Halacha Pesachim Daf Chaf Vav. Hana midavar ishaval adam ba'al korcho. Chaf Hey Amud Bet. It's learned that if a person um, against his will, meaning it just happens by itself, Abai says is allowed. He doesn't need to separate himself from it. Rava says asur, and he needs to separate himself from this. If it's possible for him to stop it, and he has intention to come close to have hana from it, for example, a smell of the zara, or in the case that it's not possible to remove himself, and he wants to enjoy the pleasure according to everyone, it would be asur. If it's not possible to separate himself from it and it doesn't have kavanah according to everyone, it would be allowed. Achloket is that he's able to separate himself and it doesn't have kavanah, and according to Rishim, that says that Kavanah is allowed. Rabba says that in his case, Rabbi Shimon did not say that it's allowed unless in a case that it's not possible to prevent it. But if it's possible, Rabbi Shimon would say that it's not allowed. And some say, and for him to separate himself, and he has kavanah, that's the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. And if it's not possible, and he has kavanah according to everyone, it would be allowed. And when it's not possible to prevent it, and he has kavanah, according to Rabbi Shimon, we go after his kavanah, and it allows b'davar shein mitkaven, according to and that in this case would be according to everyone would be asur. Machloket is to Rabbi Yehuda that says doesn't make a difference if he has kavanah or not. If he's able to separate himself would be asur, and Abaye holds like Rabbi Yehuda that doesn't make a chiluk for him if it's mikaven or not. Chafav Amud Aleph, Rabba tells you that that up to now Rabbi Yehuda by the Dabash that doesn't have intention, he didn't say that that's something you don't have intention is like the mitkaven, when he's just saying it to be machmir. But if he wants to but to say that mitkaven is like he has intention to do it, but because he didn't have intention to say his maker, he would not say such a thing. So Abai says, proof this to you that we learn. They told and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that he was sitting in the shade of the Heichal and he was making drasha the whole day. And here, he could not separate himself, and and he had kavanah to use pleasure from here, and it was allowed. And he answers, so that shows you only for the chumrah. He says that you can. Rabbi Yehuda says that for the chumrah, it's like a mitkaven, but to be mekel, he didn't say that. So Rabbi says heichal is different since it's made to be used inside of it and not really for the shade. Chafav Amud Bet, they learned that Mishnah Kalaim Tet Amud Hey, people who were selling clothing, they can wear them normally, which could have Kalaim in them, as long as they don't have Kavanah. They should get warm because from the clothing, and to get benefit from the clothing. And people who were careful, they would throw the clothing behind them on a stick, that they would not wear it. And here it's the case that you could do it like the one that are more careful and doesn't have kavana is allowed. So it must be it's coming like Rabbi Shimon, because according to Rabbi Yehuda, everybody's model that is when it's possible and it doesn't have kavana would be asur, because for according to Rabbi Shimon, it doesn't have kavana, it's always allowed. So it's a tiyufta according, it's a rejection for the according to one that says the first language of the Rava that according to him, even Rabbi Shimon, when it's possible to do it in a different way, would be always asked. So it shows that it's allowed to. So Shita Rishon Hanaba al Korcha Mi Isush Keshe'ef Shalo Shalo Lehanot. Rishonim passing like the second language, like Rabba and Rabbi Shimon. Therefore, if it's possible, it's not possible. If he has kavana, it's asur, and if he doesn't have kavana, it would be allowed. Eno mitkaven lehanot, aval pesik reisha. Going to Tosfot Rosh and the Rabbeinu Yerucham, we're talking about a case that is not for sure will happen. For example, that to close his nose, that he should not smell it, which would, because the pesik reisha, as for sure would happen, would be as if he has kavana in all the isur doraita of Torah. According to Ron, regarding taking pleasure is allowed according to Shimon when it doesn't have intention, even though it will sure happen. Since that it doesn't have kavana, we don't consider it anything. And Riyas says that if it's not have kavana for this pleasure and doesn't want it, even though he has a different way to go, is allowed. And that's a psak of the Ramah. Shani Rash explains that there's no benefit, pleasure from the shade of the it would not be asur for the shade of the hechal, because it's not a way of using it. And Rabbeinu Yochanan explained that there's no kedusha in the shade of the hechal, and that's also Maram Chalava says that explains to say that it was not make hektish on the intention of the shade of it, and the using pleasure of the shade comes automatically, and this is not a case of using hektish. Mochrik esut mochrin kedarchan v'ashalo yitchavenu. Rosh and Rabbi Shimon, Rosh and Rash hold like this Tana that they should not wear kelaim even to protect themselves from taxes. That it was something that does not have intention would be asur, and argue on Braita that of the sellers of Mishnah of people were selling clothing that they can sell normally, and Rambam paskins like this way and the other way, and Samag and Rosh paskins like the can sell, meaning we can do that both ways, and Samag and Rosh paskins that they sell normally, and Halacha is Rabbi Shimon that something you don't have kavana is allowed, and also you can wear kilaim to save himself from paying taxes. And Shulchan Aruch passes like the Rambam and the Ramah brought Yesh Matirim like a Samag and the Rosh. Shulchan Aruch Yeridei Halachot Avodah Zarah Simon Kuf Membez סעיף ט"ו אסור לשמוע כלי שיש על עבודת חכמים או להסתכל בנוי עבודת חכמים כיוון שנהנה בראייה. It's asur for a person to listen to an instrument of Avodah Zarah or to look at in the beauty of Avodah Zarah, since he has hana by looking at it. Was and parentheses mutar davar shem mitkaven mutar, something that doesn't have kavanah would allow. ידע הלכות כלי בגדים, סימן שין א', סעיף ה' לא ילבש אדם כליים ארעי, אפילו על גבי 10 בגדים שאינו מהנהו כלום, ואפילו לגנוב את המכס. The person should not wear כליים normally, even on top of 10 clothing. That doesn't give him any benefit, even to skip. The meches also is not allowed to. Vav, tofre kisut, the people who sew clothing, tofrin kedachma b'vashalo yitchavenu v'chama v'pnei hachama v'gasham v'pnei hageshamim, because they have intention to protect them from heat or cold or the rain. V'hasenuim or cold. V'hasenuim tofrin ba'ares who are careful they would sew it on the ground. We can mochre kesud mochrim kedarkan ulvash lo yitkavenu b'chama v'pnei hachama v'gasham v'pnei hageshamim. And people who sell clothing can do it in a normal way as long as they don't have kavana to have benefit from it. V'hasenuim mafshilin b'makil. The one who's senua, they would carry it on a pole. Rama says, "V'yesh matirim afilu lelbosh kelayim." Someone matter even to wear the kelayim. Kosh ein mikabel hanaato. Yigon shelo besh kelayim la'avir bo meches or shelo shadeh leha'od midatan im rosel lemachla mikadome. Someone matter to wear the kelayim, and when he doesn't have kavana for hana, for example, to wear kelayim to get rid of the meches, or they wear it to show the size of it, or they want to sell it, and things like that. Rabba says, how do I say this? How do I prove from here that we learn in the Midot that there is boxes on top of the bed that they would lower them down, lower down the workers, so they when working should not have their eyes should not have pleasure from looking to Kodesh Kodashim. But here it's not possible a different way, and it still was asur. And so does it make sense? Rabbi Yosef and Levi says in the name of Kapara, voice of Shir of Kele Kodesh and looking at and the reach of the Ketoret doesn't have Isra Me'ila from a Torah, because there's no mamash. So it must be they're strict here by Kodesh Kodashim. Some say, Rabbi says, how do I know this? And we learn, Rishon ben Pazi says, Rabbi Yosef ben Levi name Bar Kapara, Kol Mari Beriach En by Mishum Meila, they don't have problem. It's only Meila, but there's the Isur. What are we talking about? Are we talking about the one who's standing in the front of that it's not possible for them from standing there and they have kavanah? And also it says no for people who are standing outside, so of the Beit Kodesh Kodashim. So Gufa Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi name of Bar Kapara Kol Umar B'Riach doesn't have any mamash because they have problem of meila, and brings the kasha, the smell doesn't have meila. But we learn, is that true? What we learn, somebody who's preparing the ketoret to learn by it, or to give it over after he creates it to the sibur, is patur from karet, but to smell it, to smell it would be chayav karet, and somebody smells it is patur from karet, but it has meila. So Rabba says, Papa says that Kol Mare Ein Baim Mishum Meila, because they don't have any substance to them, and the smell after they burned them doesn't have, because of Meila. Since the mitzvah was done, it's finished. Shita Rishonim Isur Hana Mikol Mare Riach. Going to Maskana explain Rashi Tosfot and Samak that is the Isur the Rabbanon to have pleasure from Kol Mare, from sound, looking and smell. And Rambam says Kol Mare Riach Shel Hiktesh. You don't have Hana and there's no Meila. That's dealing in the case that he made the ketoret after that it was already used and the mitzvah was burned, or the mitzvah was done, but to smell the ketoret before that would be Isu Hana Muriyat Meshemiyat Chefes Abodazara. Rabbeinu Yerucham said from this that says Kol Ein B'Hem Meila, but there's the Isur by him. It's also to listen to musical instruments of Avodah Zarah, or to look at and the building of Avodah Zarah, since he has pleasure from looking at it. As the Pesach HaShulchan HaShulchan Yehuda Halachot Avodah Zarah Siman Bet Sif Tet Vav Asur Lishma Kelishe Shel Avodah Zarah or Yistakel B'Noy Avodah Zarah. It's also to look at the musical instrument of Avodah Zarah, or to look at the build of Avodah Zarah, since he has pleasure from it. Umihu Da'avah Kavan Mutar. Rama says that if something that doesn't have kavanah is allowed, Masa Haga B'Shem Rabbi Yehusha Acharon Zal. End of Halacha Pesachim Daf Chaf Vav.